Happy holidays, everyone. I know saying happy holidays is a trigger for some Christians out there, but I think what should be more triggering is the fact that God raped Mary to bring forth himself so that he could superlate abort himself so that he could change his holier than thou opinions. It was really the only option for this omniscient, omnipotent, and omnibenevolent God. It was the only option that he had. Jesus's conception is rape in three different ways. There was a severe power imbalance. Children cannot give consent, and her consent was never given. So while you're celebrating this Christmas season, while you're sitting down and having your meals and all that, just remember that the reason for this season is actually rape and teen pregnancy, just like Christ would have wanted. So Merry Xmas, everybody. If you disagree with this take, then please call in because the show starts now.
Welcome to the show, everybody. It is December 14th, 2025. I'm your host, Justin. You might know me at Deconstruction Zone. And my co-host today is Godless Engineer. Great to see you, friend. And I'm glad to be on the screen with you again.
Yeah, good to be here with you too. It's always a great time hosting with you, and I'm trying to be as festive as I can. Now, of course, I've got the Fallout beanie on, but I've got Gremlins and a Mogwai.
Yeah.
On my jacket. So, I'm trying to be as festive as possible.
That is a nice fit. And, it's funny is people will accuse me sometimes of like appropriating Christmas holiday because I'm an atheist. I'm like, I don't know if you know this, but most of the supposed Christian holiday was appropriated by Christians from pagan holidays before. So like, I'm just taking it back. That's it. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah, and I hope everybody realizes out there, maybe you'll go and look this up, but, at this holiday, this time of season, remember, Santa once punched a motherfucker. So, just keep that in mind.
I love the legend of Saint Nick punching somebody at the council. It's just, or at least we'll say smacking. I don't know. It's hard to say what type of it wasn't a love tap, we know that much. There was some heated discussion.
Yeah, can you just how funny would it be? I would have to bust out laughing if I just saw Saint Nicholas get up and just bitch slap somebody across the room.
Sainthood immediately, saint that man.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. Well, let me do our intro, our announcement, and then we'll start looking at maybe perhaps bringing in our first guest. We got someone that was so eager to talk to us. They called in like maybe 15 minutes early, which means I could be wrong. It could only mean that they have the best argument of all time and that we're going to be probably converted to theism after this. But this is the Atheist Experience, and we are a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. That last part might be my favorite. Now, we've got a caller on the line who humbly has submitted the name as the Supreme Leader. And John might have a little bit of a history with Supreme Leader already. We'll find out. Let's see what kind of action they came in for. But Supreme Leader is saying that they've got logical arguments for God. Well, you're on AXP with Godless Engineer and Justin. How you doing, Supreme Leader?
Hi, happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Did you want to talk to one of us specifically, or did you want to run your argument by both of us?
Man, you only broadcast on Sundays. Why?
Okay, so either one.
What? So I don't know why you got to come in automatically identifying as a little bitch again. That's what happened last time. I mean, you don't have any pronouns. You don't want to play the pronoun game, so I'm guessing you still want to be identified that way. So, fine. No. Let's go ahead with your logical arguments. You've already established, how you're identifying. So let's go ahead. Identify as a dumbass.
So, why the name calling?
I'm just correctly identifying. Go ahead with your arguments.
Well, I'm just saying, I understand being upset with each other and then you start calling each other names, but that doesn't really have anything to do with logical debate, does it?
I'm asking you for your logical debate. If you'll just, instead of continuing with the meta.
You a direct question.
No, and I said that I'm not here for the meta. I'm here for the argument.
Now, do I call you names?
I don't care if you call me names. Could you give me the argument?
I don't think you do. But if I get so upset and I start calling you names, what are you going to say?
Actually, I think I have his argument. Premise number 1 is boo hoo. Premise number 2 is wah. I'm sorry. I'd love to hear an argument though.
Isn't that a little childish to start calling each other names because we can't answer the argument?
So here's what's childish. Here's what's childish. One thing, you don't understand pronouns and you sound like a grown ass adult. You should understand what pronouns are. 2, you immediately called in and you started bitching almost immediately about when we go live, when this show has been live for as long as I know. So like it seems to do not advance. It does not advance the conversation whatsoever to start off by bitching about what time we're holding our live. So please just make the logical argument for God that you think you're thinking of right now, so that we can actually get to like whatever substance you want to get to.
Right. Let's not waste time with all that. Still, I would appreciate it if you broadcast more than once a week.
Oh my fucking God. Would you shut the fuck up and just give me your goddamn logical argument for this omniscient asshole?
Okay. So you've heard this argument before. Cause and effect. You know this argument now. I know you do.
You should know why it's not going to work then. If you've already given it to John and he didn't accept the conclusion of your argument, then you should already know it's not going to work the second time.
Well, I'm here to hear what you think, okay? Not what I think. I know what I think.
Sure.
And I made comments on the video, and you told me to call back again. So I did.
Sure. What's premise 1 of the argument?
Well, cause and effect. No cause can be greater than its effect in quantity or quality. Now,
what do you think quality means?
I'm wrong about that. I'm hoping I'm wrong about that. And I'm here to listen to you.
What do you think the word quality means? I need clarification on your verbiage. What does quality mean in your syllogism?
Well, let's take this analogy, okay? We've made AI, right?
You refuses to answer the question. I will not answer your question. How do we measure the quality of a cause or effect? Where words matter.
No effect can be greater than its cause in quality or quantity.
That's why I'm asking you, what do you mean by quality? How could you measure the quality of an effect?
That if you make something...
You never actually thought through the words of your own syllogism? That's wild.
Well, look, I have it, okay? I have it. I'm not saying you guys.
No, yeah, but you actually haven't given us like a syllogism. Like you haven't even given us a premise. You've made a statement. Like is what you've said like your first premise, and you're going to work up to like therefore God?
Well, look, I've just learned this thing about logic, okay? And I thought it was true. And I'm asking you, is this right or not? I mean, I'm appealing to your mind, not mine.
That's the problem is we can't give you feedback on premise number 1 of the argument until you tell us what you mean when you say quality.
Quality. So in the analogy of artificial intelligence, model. It's just predicting what we're going to say next. That's all it's doing.
Yeah, what's the word quality mean?
It can become so good at it that it can think about these things better than us.
You're not defining the word quality. Could you just throw it into Google real quick and read us the definition of quality? Like, that would be better. Let's use that as a starting point.
Well, it's a very simple concept. And I read it and I thought, well, surely the atheist can answer this question.
Wait, no, answer our question. Well, Justin's question. How are you defining quality in your first premise here? Like, what does quality mean?
We can't evaluate the truthfulness of the proposition till we know what the proposition is trying to claim. So what does it mean?
Well, can I ask you guys, both the hosts right now, what are your specialties in your thinking process in life? Like, what did you guys call it?
What are our specialities for thinking in life? I don't know, Justin, do you have a specialty for thinking?
You know what? I didn't take the class when I was in college. I didn't take special thinking class. I was late to that one apparently, but as it turns out, John and I are both engineers, which means both of us actually had to take logic. When I was in school, I had to take a bunch of logic classes because I did electrical engineering, and to do electrical engineering, you have to do a lot of logic. So I don't know what John's education was like, but I know I at least learned logic, and I learned that words have definitions, which is why I'm asking you for the definition of quality in the proposition that you're making.
Yeah, I remember my discrete. So I had a discrete math class, which was essentially like formal logic for going through all the premises and everything like that. And that can be applied to both like the philosophical arguments as well as like mathematical proofs and all this other stuff. So it's like very basic, base level, not basic, but base level sort of understanding of logic, how logical arguments work. So yeah, I mean, we're both engineers. We've both taken these classes. So that would be my qualification for thinking.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to know. So you both have studied logic.
Okay.
And notice how I don't try to interrupt you.
I didn't interrupt
We're
you.
the
I
hosts.
asked you, have you?
Oh, well, I sort of have so far.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
Are you ever going to answer my question about the definition of quality?
So the quality is, I'm a human being, all right? I've got a body, I've got a brain, I can think, I have the five senses, I can feel. But there's
Jesus fucking Christ. All right, since you won't define it, define quality, the standard of something. God, look, Supreme Leader, you can either define quality or I will define quality. Which one do you want it to be?
I prefer if you just refer to me as little bitch now, because you're going to call me names anyway. So it's a teleological argument.
Okay, hold on. We need to get this goddamn definition out. So the standard of something is measured against other things of a similar kind, the degree of excellence of something. So how does that apply to your first premise here?
What I'm saying, any observable cause cannot be greater than its effect. I'm sorry, I got that backwards. Any effect cannot be greater than its cause. That's the logic.
Sure. And what do you mean by greater?
Well, any observable effect can't be greater than its cause.
What does greater mean? Well, we don't know what you mean by greater.
Well, any observable effect that we can observe cannot be greater than its cause.
Well, then I
That's the
disagree because I can kick over a can of gas and drop a match in it, and I can light an entire warehouse on fire. A single cause can have a gigantic phenomenal effect. So you need to be specific when you say dumb words like greater. What do you mean by greater?
That's a bad analogy.
It's a perfect analogy.
Well, so the chemical process that causes that thing to ignite that you just kicked over, something else created that effect, not you.
No, there's
Okay.
a sequence of cause and effects. I know.
You were just involved.
Right. So hold on. Maybe we can get like a real demonstration of this. So using Justin's analogy here, we've got a can that's kicked over and chemical spills out, and then I guess some kind of incinerate.
Hold on.
What? Hold on. I'm not finished yet. I'm not finished yet.
Take it over.
I'm not finished yet. I'm not finished yet. So Justin kicks over the chemical can, and some kind of fire or something sparks something to cause a fire or whatnot. Out of that chain of events right there, causes and effects, how do you measure which one is greater than the other? Because I feel like the fire, the energy released from the fire is greater in many respects to knocking over a can of chemical, or even lighting a match to, throw it on the chemical. So maybe you can explain to us how one is greater than the other in this particular respect.
Now look, I'm not saying I'm smart, okay? I'm saying I called in because I thought you are smarter than me.
Don't worry, we'll never accuse you of such. Don't worry.
Okay. So
Can you explain the greater aspect in the example that we gave?
let's trace this back now. Cause and effect. You decided, or whoever decided to kick over that can. You did it. The causal argument.
Okay.
You've heard this many times. Dude, Matt would destroy me in a second on this.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to mention his name.
No. I mean, the point is that you haven't even gotten past premise one for us to even destroy. For one, for two, you're getting destroyed before you can even establish premise one. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, you can't define quality. You can't define what you mean by greater. You can't define anything about your first premise. Your first premise is coming off as word salad at this point. We just need some ranch.
So I'm a moron, apparently.
No, did I say that? Justin, did I call him a moron?
as it turns out, neither one of us said that.
Hey.
Do you want us to call you a moron so you can like play the victim? What's happening here?
I don't want to play the victim. I'm trying to appeal to what you're saying.
Awesome. So can you describe what you mean by greater?
Well, in your analogy, if I kicked over a can and this series of events happened, well, you kicked over the can, didn't you?
Yeah, but how is kicking over the can greater than the explosion that happens due to lighting the chemical on fire?
Because you made it happen.
What makes it greater? What do you mean by greater? This is embarrassing.
Causal argument.
I hope your mother's not watching this.
You kicked over the can. You decided to do that. You were the cause.
So maybe we can quantify this. Which one do you think exerts more energy? Justin kicking over the can or an explosion destroying a building?
The first cause. This is the causal argument.
No. Not how the word greater works. Greater doesn't entail that there's a sequence of events.
Well, it's the sequence of events that is my problem.
You could say that the cause that precedes the effect is not greater, but it does in fact happen before the effect. We would agree with you that causes precede the effect.
Well, my entire point of calling you guys, okay, is that you would definitely give me some kind of plausible argument to not believe what I believe.
I don't even. You didn't tell us what you believe. We have no idea what you believe. Tell us what you believe, and I'll tell you why it's stupid.
Well, these are all religious arguments that you've heard so many times. I'm a theist.
Buddy,
okay?
which type of theist? Do you believe in Allah? Do you believe in Vishnu, Brahma, Jesus? Which one?
Well, that's all very confusing. I believe in a first cause of everything.
Okay, so you don't believe in Jesus.
Well, I do.
So you're a Christian.
Yes.
Didn't Jesus say, if you deny me before men, I'll deny you before my Father in heaven? Pretty sure he said something like that.
Look, I'm not saying
Like when you get a
However,
Christian
I
in
think-
like a little bit of a debate, they want to so reluctantly admit that they're Christians. I'll never understand that. Just listen, when I was a Christian, I would love to tell you about why I was a Christian. 1 Peter 3:15, always be ready. Why aren't you ready?
Also, Supreme Leader, are you getting so frustrated that Justin and I are not calling you a moron or stupid or anything like that you have resorted to calling yourself that? Because that's what it sounds like.
I'm saying I'm more or less kind of average intelligence, I guess, and I'm willing to appeal to your mind. That's all.
I don't know what that means other than you just called yourself, I guess, mediocre. Like, did you just call? I feel like you just said, I'm pretty mid, but I just wanted to talk to you. Like, okay. Like, could you make an argument or tell us what you believe? We've asked you those two questions so that we could advance this conversation, and you seem to be reluctant to either give an argument or tell us exactly what you believe.
Well, you sound frustrated. The premise of my call was the logical argument of causation.
Buddy, you're not doing a good job at you're trying to make the argument from first cause. Is that what you're trying to do?
Yes.
Okay, why would we believe that there's a first cause?
And that's all I'm asking. Why do you not believe that?
There's no reason to believe it. I have no reason to believe that once the entire universe didn't exist and then there was a first cause that caused it to exist. Even if I did believe that, I still wouldn't believe that the first cause is a god.
Oh.
You can have a
Well-
first cause that's not a deistic cause. You know that, right?
Well, I don't know that. I suppose that's why I talk to you.
Fair enough. Now, do you want to hear my argument? It's only got two premises.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Premise number one, to be 100% of something, you need to have 100% of something's attributes. So, for example, if I said this is 100% tape measure, I couldn't say that this is 100% tape measure if it was missing the tape, correct?
I suppose so. I think I could.
Right. It could be part tape measure. It could be part of a tape measure, but it can't be 100% tape measure, correct?
Right.
Okay. Premise number two is Jesus lacked some of the essential qualities that make God God. Yes or no?
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
So then the conclusion is Jesus is not 100% God. He's only part God. He's demigod. He's a piece of God, which means the Trinity is false.
Well, I can suppose I see your point.
Now, Jesus can still be a different God. Like, you can believe that. You can be a polytheist. You can believe that God has parts. Partialism is a heresy, but you could believe that. But the formalized version of the Trinity as it stands within Christianity is like logically incoherent.
Well, I'm listening to you, aren't I?
Yeah. The other thing too is, like, according to the logic, Jesus was the final sacrifice because he was the perfect lamb. He was unblemished, but there's actually no prophecy about the Messiah being sinless, nor a prophecy about the Messiah being sacrificed. And also in John chapter 7, he told a pretty blatant lie. You want to see it?
Go ahead.
Sure. In John 7, he's talking to his disciples about going to the festival. He tells them that he's not going to the festival. And then he does. It says, Jesus said to them, my time has not yet come, but your time is always here. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify against it that its works are evil. Go to the festival yourselves. I am not going to go to the festival, for my time is not yet fully come. And says, after saying this, he remained in Galilee, but after his brothers had gone to the festivals, then he also went, not publicly as it were, but in secret. So he lied to his disciples so that he can secretly go to the festival.
Okay. I see your point.
Which means he doesn't qualify as the spotless lamb.
Why?
Because he lied.
Because he lied?
Did we just blow your mind?
No, I know you're thinking about all this. And I've just called to hear your thoughts. That's all. I think you
Okay.
are stupid. I appreciate your broadcast. I wish it happened every day, not just on Sunday.
Well, you're in
Okay,
luck. John
well-
goes live like 3 days a week, and so do I.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was just today.
No, this channel is only live on Sundays, but John and I are live all throughout the week on our channels and other channels.
What are those channels?
John?
So I'm Godless Engineer. You can find me on YouTube as Godless Engineer or TikTok as Godless Engineer. So it's just Godless Engineer.
Sure. And my screen name on the internet is Deconstruction Zone. And John and I are live all the time. You don't have to just come here on Sundays.
Yeah, I hate that. Wait till Sunday.
Yeah, I'd hate to do it. I love talking to John. I wouldn't want to wait a week every time.
No,
But
Okay.
also,
Well, listen. Go ahead, John.
I just want to point out that like we're here to either have like actual discussions or have our not get into arguments, but like where we go back and forth, not just where you're like, oh, I just want to hear what you say. Like, I mean, I get that I'm fine fielding those kinds of questions, but like we're gonna probably move on.
okay. Well, sorry to waste your time.
No, it's fine.
That's
Supreme
it.
Leader, thanks for calling in. You're not wasting anyone's
Okay.
time.
I'll probably call into one of your other shows then.
Oh, okay.
Cheers, bud.
Thank you for your time.
You too.
All right. Bye. I really wish that he wouldn't use the Supreme Leader thing because that makes me not take him seriously. Like, it's really stupid, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, you can make up any name, just not like some kind of stupid shit like Supreme Leader. And then I think that's especially funny. You call in with Supreme Leader and then you immediately start bitching about our schedule.
Oh, well. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? All right. Well, we got one call down. We've got two waiting in the wings. And at least we got one agnostic, I believe, and one theist. So I suppose we'll grab our theist first. We've got one super chat, two super chats. We'll grab those and then we'll get our next guest. We've got a $10 super chat from, I think, Rigel Centaurus. Says, before I debate with a Christian, I always encourage them to pray for the Holy Spirit to give them the words to say, Luke 12:11-12, so that they will also be without excuse, Romans 1:20. Actually, this is a very fair point because then when the debate kind of goes south, we can only assume as a viewing audience that the Holy Spirit didn't show up and that the prayers aren't being answered. So. And Gretchen, thank you for the $6.66 super chat, says Supreme Leader got you guys out here debunking arguments that he never even made. I think he just wanted to call in and shoot the shit. That might be right.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. But I'm which I'm not opposed to people calling in and asking sincere questions about things. But like, I don't know, he didn't call in and act like he wanted like a sincere conversation or anything.
Yeah. And we got another super chat to Forrest, or maybe from Forrest. Let me make sure I understand what's happening here. Says Forrest, maybe there's a reason you get kicked off of calls. You should reflect. Supreme Leader reflects. I will not have a conversation. Very good. Very good. Okay. Oh my goodness. All right. Let me grab our next guest. There's going to be Steve, all the way from Australia. Says that they've got proof of God in the geological form. So welcome in, Steve. You're talking to Godless Engineer and Justin on AXP. We'd love to hear your argument, apparently from geology, about why God is real.
Good morning, Justin and John, is it?
Yes.
Right. Well, sorry. My argument goes sort of this way.
Sorry, did he get raptured?
It. Maybe.
Steve, are you there?
Steve?
No.
To be fair, he did give us 100% of his argument from geology for God. That was it.
Did I disappear?
Yep. Oh, yep. For a second there, we got you back though.
Sorry. What did you hear me say?
Just that you have an argument.
Oh, a great time for my phone to go to sleep. Yes. So many rocks are very hard, and if you break them up, you can get crystals. And I am personally bejazzled for crystal and rock hard for Doug, and I think that's complete proof of my theology.
Oh my God.
Rock hard, baby. the grounding of reality. Thank you, Steve. You know what? I didn't think we'd have a convincing argument today, but look at that. We got one.
Yeah. No, I'm totally rock hard for Doug now. Yeah.
It's crazy how the Doug lore took off. I never thought that was coming, but what are you going to do? Well, let me grab, we're going to get Alfred, who is an agnostic, in here. And then after that, we'll see if we have any more super chats. Friends, if you want to support the stream, super chats are one way that you can support our stream. We get them in during the stream, and we read them between calls or at the end of the calls. And so it's a great way to support the stream. And with that, let's grab Alfred all the way from Florida. Alfred says, well, he doesn't say anything. He's got a question. It says, how do atheists feel about holidays such as Christmas? Well, welcome to AXP, Alfred. You're on with Godless Engineer and Justin. And I can tell you what I think, but I'd like to hear what John thinks.
I mean, I feel like Christmas has been secularized at this point, and is not really relevant to any kind of celebration of Jesus or whatnot. Like, I know that Christians do celebrate Jesus at this time, and they've worked that in, but the actual Christmas celebrations that we go through are really sort of borrowed pagan traditions that we've incorporated into our modern lifestyle, and they didn't even really come into popularity until like the 19th or early 20th centuries. So it seems to me like it's a more modern thing for us to celebrate Christmas like we are doing, and it seems more secular in nature to celebrate Christmas in the way that we have been. And that originally, I like to appeal back to the original Christians, OG Christians, because they didn't care about Jesus's birth. In fact, what they cared about was the Epiphany, which was typically celebrated on like January 6th or so, which is kind of weird, but around that time. And with that, that's when Jesus is adopted by God in the Gospel of Mark. And that was actually more important to the early Christians because they didn't really care about his birth. They didn't care about Jesus's birth, trying to establish his birth or anything like that until much later. So it seems to me like the Christmas that we celebrate now is kind of devoid of any reference to Christ, and other than namesake. And I think that that's just more to co-opt maybe other religions, or just to continue the winter celebrations that have always been part of human civilization.
Alfred?
Yes,
Oh, there you go.
I know you crack on me every time, but like I really am an agnostic, and I'm confused about
Alfred,
this
you're
stuff.
not.
I don't know what.
Alfred, you call in with a different name every time you call in, and you're not
I want to
agnostic. You do not
believe-
believe this nonsense.
I want to believe, but I just can't, like all the time.
No, you
I'm
can't.
really agnostic. I'm really agnostic because you can't say either way. So, but like I would say that's cool. I like what he said, that Godless engineer and all. But I just say it either way, theist or atheist is a faith from my perspective. But I can't really commit to either side really, because it's just there's a lack of information. We're like, I would say, I want to say this to you guys, because I think you'll like this. The Garden of Eden, for example, has been debunked by science itself. We know through radioisotope dating, people weren't around in the beginning. It was like, so the Garden of Eden has been debunked by science itself. We could just go ahead and say that. It's just there was no people in the beginning. Dinosaurs were on the earth like for hundreds of millions of years. We know that.
Alfred/Patrick, what is the point of this? Like, I have no idea what you're trying to prove or trying to establish here.
What you said about Christmas, I like that. It is a time to gather around the family. It doesn't have to be, I don't know what this secularization is, like secular rarity. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, like, because
you don't know what secularization means? You don't know what secularization means?
I'd rather not Google.
What? You'd rather not Google. So you want me to do all the legwork for you? Is that it?
That's usually what atheists want from theists.
What, to do your own homework? Yeah, I don't want to do I spent my entire time in school doing homework for fucking other people. I'm not going to do it here for you.
Well, the atheists want to ask the theists about God. I don't think that's how it works. First off, you'd have to think about it yourself.
That's not what's happening here. Alfred Patrick, Patrick Alfred. Look, that's not what's happening here. Like, we're here for people to call in and give us their best evidence for God. We're not finding random fucking numbers on the internet to call and demanding. It's not like we're picking up the phone and we're like, give me your evidence for God right now. I need to know the evidence for God right now.
It sounds a lot like Atheist Church to me is what y'all are doing.
How is this Atheist Church?
It's like y'all are
Justin, you've been in church more recently than me. Does this seem like church at all? Because last time I checked, church is pretty phobic to questions.
Trying to recruit.
I mean,
admit it.
To be fair, this is not something I see on a Sunday morning too often when I was in church. Like usually some possibly not even sober clown coming in and picking fights with the people on stage. Not usually something that you see in church.
I'm a heckler. Yes, I'm a heckler. Y'all are ridiculous. They deserve it.
Mm-hmm. So you can't prove that your God exists, and you hate that atheists are out here with arguments that you can't refute. So how about I'll just give you an argument why your God existing doesn't make any sense. You want to hear it?
Spiral Architect. Spiral Architect is better than Supreme Overlord or whatever.
Spiral Architect? What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I like that. That's for
no
God.
idea.
God has been
You're not a serious person.
The core. Tesla said core. That's the same word for God.
There we go.
Tesla
now we're going.
in God.
Listen,
You're
you can degrade the name of Jesus,
scientists
but I'll
here.
never let you talk bad about Tesla. Not on my watch, okay, buddy?
Tesla believes.
All right, get rid of that fool.
Yeeted him. That's crazy. I really think that he's like a half drunk guy coming in and giving the pastor or priest shit. Like I would have to laugh out loud about that. Like, I mean, obviously he's getting kicked out, but like, I don't know. Anyways, I don't know what to think about that call.
They'd get a good show at least. I don't think that. I think every time I've been on AXP, he's called in as like a different character. I don't think he's for real. I think he's bored and lonely. And friend, if you're bored and lonely, there are places you can go on the internet rather than calling in on this show. You don't have to waste anyone's time by calling in on this show. I mean, listen, it can be entertaining for some people, but to be fair, I think we're kind of getting over it. You know what I mean? Well, let me grab our announcements and we'll do some super chats and we'll bring in our next guest, William, all the way from Mississippi. Friends, as we already mentioned, one way you can support our channel is by sending in super chats. Also, make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you know every time we're live. Also, if you're in the Austin area, you can follow us on Meetup and keep up with community events. You can see what's going on during the event calendars on tiny.cc/ACA Meetup. We've got events like Philosophy Under the Stars, game nights, and more. So if you need Atheist Community and you're in the Austin area, it's one good way that you can be in community. And also, we want to send a big thank you to the cast and crew here who put the show together every week: video operators, audio operators, note takers, call screeners, chat moderators, and more. They're not just putting the show together. A lot of times there's people live in studio as well that people are managing down in Austin. So thank you everyone for making the show possible. Almost 30 years now been on the air, and largely due to volunteers. Without volunteers making the shows run, I wouldn't be here. John and I are just two screens that get on a head. All the hard work, or two heads that get on a screen. I mean. Oh boy. Someone's going to clip that one. We're done. Okay.
Yep.
But the hard work is happening behind the scene. John, let's grab some super chats. How about we'll alternate? I'll read and you read. Can you see the supers? Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
Perfect. Eric, thank you for the $5 super chat. Says, I also enjoy hearing your guys' thoughts. And I have this special method called watching the stream, no calling necessary. Oh, I like this method. This is a good one.
Next, we've got Bryce Aroni, 6635, with the $20 saying, hey guys, I'm obviously a fan of both of you. Question, why do you think theists bring the same arguments over and over again, as if they've never researched counter-apologetics or ever watched you guys debunk them before? I don't know. What do you think, Justin?
Well, my opinion is, because I used to read some of the apologetic books when I was a young Christian. I think the reason is most of the apologetic books trot out the same bad arguments, and they pretend as if there are no good answers to some of those arguments. And so you read enough of them and you hear your pastor repeat it, you might think, oh, atheists have no answer for this. And so if you've never talked to an atheist in real life, you can go into this thing blind, thinking that you've got an awesome argument, not having realized that, like, we've already heard it 4,000 times and that it's not a good argument. So I think it's a little bit the overconfidence of not knowing, especially like, remember when you were in school, you probably met college freshmen that took like their first couple classes and now they think that they're geniuses because their minds have been open to higher education, and then they go in and know all their family members when they go home for Thanksgiving dinner. And then, over the next couple of years, they start to settle in and realize they don't actually know anything. I feel like that's the arc of the apologist. They start out like a college freshman. They don't know anything. They learned one or two things that was super convincing and important to them. And now they think they're smart, and they have yet to go out into the real world and learn that they don't know anything yet.
Yeah, I found that like all of the arguments are just repackaged versions of things, like Aquinas' five ways, or other arguments like that. They're essentially just repackaged and changed. And I've actually, I don't know if I've just watched so much apologetic content in searching for new stuff, but like I can clock somebody as to who they've been listening to. Typically, it's Frank Turek if you're talking about creationism or something like that, or if you're talking about like the morality of the Bible or something like that, it's going to be William Lane Craig. Like, I mean, those are just the common apologists that people appeal to, and they have like their own specific phrases that you can clue in on. Like from the what does Frank Turek say? From the good to the zoo to you is one thing. They like those kind of alliterations right there. So, I mean, I think that the problem is that they like Justin was saying, they hear these arguments for the first time. They think that it's novel, or they think that, oh, the atheists haven't heard Frank Turek say this thing, since he was debating Hitchens back in 2010, kind of thing. And so they regurgitate it like we've never heard it before. So it does become a sort of a process of beating a dead horse almost. But I find that beating the dead horse in this particular situation is good, because people just don't know that these are fully refuted kind of things. And so you're sort of introducing them to new information and sort of unlocking that for them. And so that's what I really enjoy doing.
Yeah. I think the fun thing too is nowadays we're seeing more atheists present arguments that would conclude with God not being real, rather than just fielding bad theistic arguments. I feel like atheists are more on the attack now, developing their own arguments for why God wouldn't be real, and we're putting the believers on their back feet finally, which is I think it's been pretty awesome. We've got another super chat from Lens Silverweb. Thank you so much for the 666. Says crystals are proof of Doug, as prophesied in Quartz 420 within the old bedrock part of the book of Doug. Rock hard for Doug and simply wet for Sharon. Absolutely, I agree with this sentiment, and may the quartz be with you.
And I know I feel like I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but I think it's Vandalia 1998 for 999, who says, I think I discovered when the real global flood happened, and it solves the heat problem. If you consider snow as water, when the flood happened approximately 700 to 600 million years ago. I think that's just the ice age, right?
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
And Xenothuran, thank you for the $5 super chat. It says, at Godless Engineer, how close to reality is Squidbillies to Georgia / the South in general? The guy from Florida is reminding me, and I want to know.
Yeah. So, I mean, so in the South, you have different areas. Like there's more of a metro area, which is where I'm from. And then there's what people would call the boonies. I'd say Squidbillies is more like the boonies. And that's pretty, it's pretty, I would say kind of spot on for that. But if you're going to go closer to the cities, like bigger cities like Birmingham, Montgomery, Huntsville, and all that here, at least here in Alabama, I would say that you're going to not encounter that as much. But it's more or less like the countryside, the boonies, that you're going to find that kind of, that kind of redneck.
Right. Well, we've got one caller waiting and another one possibly in screening, so now might be at a good time. We'll get to more super chats, friends, after these calls, or at the end of the show. We're going to bring in William, who I believe is an atheist, all the way from Mississippi. Says, I don't believe in the story of Jesus's birth, and as it turns out, William, neither do we. Did you have anything else to add to that?
Oh, I didn't actually say that. The chat and poll said yes or no, and I'll call in anyway. So I called in anyway.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It said, do you believe the birth of Jesus in Nazareth was a fact? Yes or no? Yes, and I'll call in. Or no, and I'll call in anyway. So I selected no, and I'll call in anyway, and then called in.
Thank you for calling in. We appreciate your call. No, I don't think that. No, I said that, you know, I appreciate your call. I don't know what else you want to say other than the story's bullshit.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
Congrats.
yeah, definitely.
We agree.
Uh,
Yep. W. All right, let's get Wes from Georgia, who appears to be an actual theist. Wes says that intuition is useful. Welcome on, Wes. You're on AXP with Godless Engineer and Justin. Are you suggesting that intuition is like a pathway to God or something else?
Well, I think it's kind of funny. I hear y'all say things like, "It's in the end, it's just vibes," right?
I never said that.
Oh, okay.
I don't know who you're talking to. Neither one of us ever said that.
Okay. No. Not that you believe that, but that Christians are Christians because of vibes. That's just it's kind of a feeling thing. Maybe I haven't heard you say that.
Well, no.
Anyway.
So I would say that sometimes theists end up like, as soon as we pry deeper and deeper, we get to a point where they just feel like God is real. But typically, we only say that when they've admitted to the idea that, oh, well, I just feel like God is real, or that I can't think of another reason why this would have happened without God, or something like that. So, like, it's typically just a response to characterize something that they've said, and never like an accusation.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. I think what I'm going after is that arc that you just talked about, Justin just talked about, of thinking I know it all and then realizing that you don't know anything. I think that I'm kind of at that place myself where I just don't think I know anything about. I don't know if I can know anything. I mean, I'm talking to two guys
Good
here,
place.
and from what I understand, though, like the two of y'all disagree on the existence of Jesus. I'm not sure about your points, but I think that one of you is a Jesus mythicist and one is not. Is that correct?
Well,
Yeah,
sorry. Go ahead, Justin.
So we actually agree more than we disagree. Like, even though I believe there was a historical Jesus, the vast majority of what the Bible says about him, I think, is mythology, right? So we actually agree way more than we disagree.
Yeah, and to the point of like both of us, like Justin definitely has a very deconstruction mindset, helping people deconstruct from the magical version of Jesus to a more minimal historical Jesus, and I totally respect that. And I think that you know, that's actually the first hurdle whenever you're dealing with you know, a Christian in this respect. So I personally would probably take up the minimal historical Jesus if I was talking to a theist, unless we're specifically talking about like historicity or the historical nature of the Gospels or something like that, where we're actually going to dive into the history of the faith or the origins of Christianity. If we're just talking about whether or not Jesus is God or whether or not the Gospels represent Jesus in some kind of way, I'm perfectly fine taking up a minimal historical Jesus and saying, like, sure, we can assume that Jesus existed as a historical person, because the first hurdle that you have to get over is this whole idea that a magical Jesus exists. And so, I mean, but yeah, I would agree. Justin and I are more in line than we disagree.
Yeah, and I guess I'm saying on the parts where you disagree, you know, that did a historical Jesus exist or not? You both have studied a lot of evidence on it. And I'm not trying to get y'all into a fight with each other here. I'm trying to just say, when you look at real, you know, good scholarly work on whether Jesus existed or not, you come to different conclusions. And I think that I have found myself in that same place where I completely sympathize with the atheist, like looking at the evidence for Jesus, say, I just don't land there, just as much as you would look at each other and say, I see where you're at, but I just don't land there. I just feel like we just don't know. And I'm taking kind of that leap of faith because of intuition, because because of vibes. It feels like there is something more out there. And so I'm taking that leap of faith that this is what it is.
It certainly does happen, but I would point out that when it comes to reading the literature on the historicity of Jesus, John is more well-read than I am. I haven't dedicated the time to studying this particular topic because it's not important to my work. To me, it doesn't matter if he was real or if he was 100% fiction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think, okay, well, let me take a different example, not just the two of you, but there are atheist scholars that disagree. I think Richard Carrier, says that Jesus did not exist, there are mythicists and non-mythicists. So I'm saying when those two disagree, I mean, you can look at each other and shake hands and be like, I get where you're coming from. I just can't get there. And for some reason, we look at the scholarship and either land on one side or the other. And I don't know why we land on one side or the other, but I just can't shake that I see all the scholarship against Christ, against the miracles, and against all these things, and I just can't shake that I land on the side of believing Paul. I believe Paul. I believe Peter. Something happened there, and it explains all the kind of spiritual intuition that everybody seems to walk around with.
So Wes, what does Paul say exactly in his epistles? How does he describe Jesus?
I don't even know that. I don't even know that I would be really. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm kind of assuming where you're going with the question. Paul describes Jesus as physically risen from the dead. Is that what you're asking about?
Well, I mean, so yes, like he has a physical body, but he's revelatory, right? Like we're not talking about a Jesus that's walking around on earth at this point. We're talking about a revealed Messiah. And he says this multiple times throughout his epistles. In Galatians 1:11, you can read that. And it says that he did not get his information from any human person on earth. He got it from revelation. And then in other passages, he talks about how he got other information from Scripture. And so with Jesus being a revealed being, right, and not necessarily being walking around on earth, Paul, you would agree that Paul definitely didn't know Jesus while he was walking around on earth, right?
Doesn't seem like it, no.
Okay, so I mean, if you want to say that you want to believe Paul, and Bart Ehrman would agree with me on this. He's a staunch anti-mythicist, but he asserts that Paul believed in Jesus as a pre-existent angelic figure. So, are you saying that you believe, as Paul does, that Jesus was a pre-existent angelic figure that revealed his good news, his gospel to Paul through a hallucination or a vision, and that's how we got the good news?
I believe that's how Paul got the good news, but then I get a different witness from somebody else, from Peter, who says that he saw him bodily. And
where does Peter say that?
I believe Acts. I mean, I believe Acts. So it's
right. But so
against it. I've taken Bart Ehrman's classes on it. I've seen what he said.
Okay.
I just believe it. It's like dominoes that fall.
Well, no. So, okay. So for me, I can't just believe something, right? Like because what you're describing right now is like you're making a choice in what convinces you. Like you just believe because you're choosing to be convinced, and that's not how beliefs work. Just as part of me, I can't just sit there and believe something without having good reason to believe in it and to be convinced by it. So like when you say, well, Acts is how I know this thing, to me, Acts is historical fiction. And at least we don't have a good method for discerning historical fiction from historical fact in Acts. And so there's no way that I can use Acts in order to inform myself about what the earliest apostles believed. All that I know for certain is that Paul writes about Peter, and Peter received the information about Jesus in the same way that Paul did. We do have 1st and 2nd Peter, but that was 2nd Peter definitely wasn't written by anybody named Peter. The critical scholarship's a little bit out on 1st Peter, whether or not that was actually written by Peter, but First Peter doesn't actually have any bodily interaction or historical interaction with Jesus. That's only Second Peter. And in Second Peter, it specifically says that they're bringing up this interaction due to other people saying that they believed in cleverly devised myths. And so there was apparently some people going around saying, well, this Jesus character is mythical or legendary that they believe in. However you want to take that, it is at least some people that are going around saying that this Jesus figure that the Christians believe in is not historical in some kind of aspect. It's more legendary or mythical. And so that's what we know about Peter. So when you say, I believe what Peter believed, we don't know what Peter believed other than Peter's beliefs matched what Paul believed. And that's the way that we can know what Peter believed. And Paul believed in a pre-existent archangel figure. So that I'm not trying to establish the ahistoricity of Jesus right now. He could have been a real historical figure walking around, gathered people and pissed people off and got unalived. Sorry, killed. Got killed. That's perfectly reasonable position to take on that. And it still could be a completely different person than what Paul perceived, right? So I don't know. That's my position on it. Like Acts, you can't know. You can't.
Do we think that Peter had influence in the book of Mark?
I don't know.
Don't know. I like how in sync we were with that, Justin. We don't know. So we don't, as far as Peter and Mark, we don't know, but there is some pretty good scholarship out there that has connected the Gospel of Mark to things that Paul has said, in that Paul says there are certain things that are of his particular opinion, not something that has been given by Jesus. And then you have Mark reifying that information into the mouth of Jesus, saying that Jesus actually said those things. So like it's either Paul was mistaken and it's not his opinion, it's actually Jesus's opinion, which seems kind of weird, or Mark knew Paul and took some of Paul's teachings and put it into Jesus's mouth. So like there's two different things right there, and I think it's more likely that Mark had Paul's epistles and just put some of those ideas into the mouth of Jesus. So I think that's more likely.
Mark, at the end of it, has a missing body, has an empty tomb.
Well, which end?
I mean, it's a
because the original ending of Mark doesn't.
I thought the original ending had the empty tomb. It doesn't have the risen Jesus, but it has the empty tomb.
Right,
they leave grade, right?
Yeah. The tomb is empty in Mark 16, but there's no resurrection, right? This is something that's added to Mark later, which certainly would make you wonder why people are so comfortable adding to the gospel.
Yeah, I could go down that rabbit hole with you, but I think that it's very I don't know. I mean I can see the point that we're not sure about First and Second Peter. Acts is lots of evidence that's not history. But I mean, I've read lots and lots of scholars that that back up the historicity of Acts, and lots of really good reasons.
The historicity is irrelevant. Whether or not Acts is a historical account or complete fiction is not relevant. We've got complete works of history, Tacitus, Suetonius, Herodotus, Pliny, all kinds of historical works that are full of mythological claims. So, for example, one of the most famous is a guy named Aristeas that is mentioned by Herodotus, Pliny, Plutarch, Apollonius, Diodorus. All of them mention this guy who died in the fuller's shop and resurrected and appeared to many of the Proconnesus people, claiming to be the resurrected individual. In fact, in Herodotus, in Histories, Book 4, he says, so much told by these cities, and what follows I know happened to the people of the Metapontians in Italy 240 years after the second disappearance of Aristeas, as I found, but by putting together the evidence at the Proconnesus and Metapontian, the people of the Metapontian say that Aristeas himself appeared in their land and bade them to set up an altar of Apollo and place by its side a statue bearing the name of Aristeas of the Proconnesus. So we've got all like the resurrection accounts that we find of Jesus are no different than any other resurrection account in the ancient Greco-Roman sources. Just saying that they're historical and that there's a bunch of historical events recorded in there by no means could validate the mythological claims found within.
Yeah, I mean, I get that the historical, the places, the names, all those things can be historical with there being all kinds of mythology in it. But I mean, we have to make a decision. At some point, early Christians did not believe it was mythology. At some point, they believed it was real.
I know, but why should we believe it's real? Because people also believed that Aristeas became a god after he resurrected. So why do we believe that Jesus became God and resurrected, but not Aristeas?
I think it's just comparing the two claims and seeing, is
What's
there
the difference?
I think that there is a tremendous amount of history that surrounds the claims in the Gospels that doesn't surround these other.
No, that's certainly not remotely the case. In fact, more independent attestation is for Aristeas than Jesus. That's why we get it for people who didn't collaborate. We get these stories from people that weren't in the cult. The people that write about Aristeas are outsiders reporting it. They're not insiders. The biblical accounts are all from insiders. They're all from people already in the cult.
Right. I look at how Jesus connects. Like Jesus just makes sense in history. He's not just this figure that appears.
Hold on. So Wes,
thread throughout all of history.
So Wes, like I can get on board with the minimal historical Jesus, like what Justin accepts for the purpose of the argument, but I feel like you're not talking about the same kind of minimal historical Jesus, because the minimal historical Jesus, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Justin, as far as your view of it, is just itinerant rabbi that gathered a group of people that pissed some people off, and eventually the Romans killed him, and his group continued on after him with Paul and Peter and James and John being some of the primary apostles that we at least know about, continuing the faith. So like none of that, like that can make historical sense in that time and place and everything like that, but that's far different than what I think that you're talking about, because I think you're talking about like the magical, the magical divine Jesus, and as opposed to the minimal historical one. But am I wrong about that, or am I pretty spot on?
No, you're spot on. I mean, I'm a Christian. I'm a theist, so I believe the magical Jesus.
Let me ask you a question, because the magical Jesus is one of the hottest debated topics among critics of the early church. So if you read Porphyry or the Disputation with Celsus or literally anybody else, they bring up that Jesus's supposed magic works are just one of many, and there's dozens and dozens of other magic workers of the time period that were credited with doing similar things. Like Jesus wasn't unique at all. I think if Jesus is who he says he is, then he must be the prophesied Messiah from the Hebrew Bible, because that's his claim. The foundational claim of Christianity is that the Old Testament said that this Messiah would come and do some stuff, and then Jesus came and did it, right? Whether you think he did miracles or whether you think he resurrected from the dead is all secondary. If he's not the Messiah, then this whole mythological Jesus is the most plausible explanation of Jesus. So the reality is, when I read the Hebrew Bible, and why the Jews rejected him is because he didn't fulfill even one messianic prophecy. And every time he reads from the Hebrew Bible, he blunders it. He quotes it from the Greek Septuagint, and half the time he doesn't even quote it correctly. And the other half of the time he doesn't even understand what it means. It's like, why would I accept that this guy is literally God when he can't even quote his own book?
No, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. I mean, where do you want to start?
Sure. Let's start in Isaiah 61. There's really interesting prophecy. There's an interesting prophecy in the post-Babylonian exilic period about the restoration of Israel. Almost all of 3rd Isaiah is about the restoration of Israel. And it starts out with the prophet saying that the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because the Lord has anointed me. He has sent me to bring good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and release to the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, and to comfort all who mourn. You might be asking, who's mourning? Well, he tells you to provide for those who mourn in Zion and give them garland instead of ashes, oil of gladness instead of mourning. Why were they mourning? Because they got their asses kicked by the Babylonians, which is why verse 4 says, they shall build up the ancient ruins. They shall raise up the former devastations, and they shall repair the ruined cities, the devastations of many generations. And it goes on to depict what the restoration of Israel is going to be like. So when I'm reading Isaiah 61, this prophecy is quite clearly, unless you can find something in here that I've never seen, is quite clearly just a restoration prophecy post-Babylonian exile. Am I missing something?
No, that took place, right?
No, I don't think it did take place. I mean, it depends on, like, if you think like maybe Nehemiah and Ezra resolved it, you could say that. You can say, well, Isaiah 61 came true during the Second Temple period. But if that's the case, that means Jesus is lying to you in Luke chapter 4 when he says it's fulfilled today in your hearing.
No, I don't think that is how those prophecies are being read, how any of those Old Testament prophecies are being read. You remember the story after Jesus was resurrected and he's walking.
How is Jesus reading it?
I'm telling. This is how I'm telling you. He reads the Old Testament. So when he's walking down the Emmaus road with the 2 disciples, and it says that he opened their eyes, and he began at the prophets and showed them himself throughout the whole scriptures. And
not in there anywhere.
That is how Christians understand the Old Testament. Not that it is.
So hold on.
Red light pointing at one specific person, but that like the Messiah is fulfilling all of these types and pictures.
Right.
Thousands of types.
Yes. No, trust me, both Justin and I understand that. So my question to you is, what do you understand about Pesherim, like the Pesherim tradition?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I didn't mean for that to come off as dismissive. But I feel like this is one of the biggest things that a lot of Christians, they don't know about, which would explain why a lot of these so-called prophecies end up as being interpreted as prophecies. So Pesherim creation, or the Pesherim tradition, is something that was widely done throughout Jewish culture at the time. You've got Philo of Alexandria that praises the practice of it and even engages in it in multiple aspects, especially with his logos concept. And what Pesherim is basically you're taking the Old Testament, right, and the Septuagint specifically in these cases, and you're taking segments of scripture, like small segments, like even sometimes singular verses or even parts of verses. And what you're doing is you're creating a new interpretation of that's distant from the actual intent of the passage, right? You're sitting there, you're coming at it, and you're saying, giggity, you're coming at it and you're saying like, God didn't mean what they originally meant here. They really mean this thing that's about the Messiah. And so these Jews and Jewish Christians, what they did was they scoured the Old Testament, and they took these segments and they said, well, this is really about the Messiah. And so they made it about the Messiah. And that's why you have so many different gospels that have so many different sets, oftentimes overlapping sets of these so-called prophecies that are fulfilled by the gospels and Acts in this case. But even outside the canon, extra biblical gospels that were written, they have these certain sets of prophecies that they have Jesus fulfilling, even if they're not supposed to be like messianic prophecies. But the ones that are actually prophecies in the Old Testament about the Messiah, the Jesus that we've come to know, that Paul came to believe in, he did not actually fulfill any of those things. And that's what Justin is pointing out here, is that the actual prophecies about the Messiah, Jesus didn't fulfill any of them. But I think, me personally, I think that's because a military Messiah, or a Messiah that's supposed to do all the things that the Jews predicted that the Messiah would do, was nigh impossible at that point, given the Jews' status in the Roman Empire, as well as the strength of the Roman Empire. And you could blame it on a whole host of a bunch of other things. But what I'm trying to get across here is that the reason why Jesus seems to fulfill these supposed prophecies, and why you've got so many apologetics for how he has fulfilled the supposed ones, or the ones that are actually ones, but he actually hasn't, is because that's the only way that this Messiah could have ever come about. That's how I feel personally. I don't know how Justin feels about it, but I think that this is the only path forward that would have resulted in a believable Messiah, is to change what they originally meant into something different that is not supported by the original intent of the Old Testament.
That makes sense. And so let me ask you this. Are you saying that it's called Pesherim? I've not heard of that. Is that something that was pretty common then at the time?
Yeah.
Yep.
So the active of Pesherim was, that means to interpret in Hebrew from that time period. And if you get a copy in English of the Dead Sea Scrolls, you'll find a handful of Pesherim in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And like, here's an example. This is the Pesher on Nahum. The quotation is from Nahum chapter 2, verse 11. And it says, "Wherever the lion goes to enter, there also goes the whelp." And then it says, here's the Pesher. This refers to Demetrius, king of Greece, who sought to enter Jerusalem through the council of flattery seekers, so on and so forth. So he reinterprets Nahum's prophecy in chapter 2 as being about the kingdom of Greece. But when you read the prophecy in Nahum chapter 2, especially in verse 8, it specifically says that this prophecy is against Nineveh, right? So they're just taking stuff from the Old Testament and they're repurposing it, saying these words mean this now, and these words mean this. The original context no longer has any meaning. And that's the same thing the New Testament was doing. But the New Testament is just as false as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Pesherim is not a valid method of interpreting prophecy.
How widespread was it to use these Pesherim?
I'd say it depends on where you're from. So you'll find it more in the region of the Dead Sea and then region of Galilee. You wouldn't have found this as being a popular fad like within Judaism proper inside of Jerusalem, which is obviously why so many of the messianic movements that failed were from Galilee, or perhaps from the Dead Sea. And they were almost all rejected by Jerusalem, because Jerusalem stuck to the core of the Hebrew Bible and understood it to mean what it means in the original context. They weren't going in and trying to find secret messages and decode the secret messages, you know?
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. I think that the fact that it was a common practice, I think there's something to it. I obviously don't think that you should take a verse that applies to a city and try to apply it to another city in order to try to.
Sorry to interrupt, but
prophecy.
What does it being common have to do with it being valid?
No. Yeah, that doesn't mean it's valid. No, I'm not saying it's. I don't want to say that. What I'm saying is, it's interesting to know that it's common, and I don't think that trying to take one verse, that talks about Babylon and apply it to Jerusalem or whatever is a good practice or valid. I can agree with that, but there is something when you look back through Scripture, you see it echoes itself. Like the later Scriptures are edited by scribes to reflect the earlier Scriptures, and the numbers are added in, the sevens and the 42, all those things. So I guess it's a practice to be able to reflect backwards in order to get light on what to expect in the future.
Right, but I feel like you have to treat this this right here as like if the Harry Potter series was written by multiple different individuals over a span of thousands of years, right? Like if the Harry Potter series was written over many years by different authors, and the later books are fulfillment of what was foreshadowed in the earlier books. Don't you think that it's more likely that the later books just use the earlier books in order to complete the foreshadow?
Yeah, they did. They absolutely did. That's
Right.
part of the tradition.
Can you? Well, no, but the problem there becomes: can you discern between true fulfillment versus making shit up? Because like people made shit up back then, even the Jews, even the Romans, like people, even outside the Roman Empire, people just made shit up. Like that's part of human nature is to make shit up. So how do you discern between making shit up and a true fulfillment of these things?
I don't see the prophecy as being like something that is, God calling his shots kind of prophecy. I know that is the way that prophecy is traditionally seen. Like, oh, look, God said he was going to come on Tuesday, and he came on Tuesday. It's I don't see it that way. I see it more as like
God says that's what he does. God says in Isaiah that I declare the end from the very beginning, and he says in Amos, he says that he doesn't do anything before revealing his secrets through the prophets.
Okay. I mean, there's obviously prophecy in the Bible where prophets are standing up and saying, get in the middle of a city and saying, if you don't repent, God's going to burn your city down. And variations of that. There are all kinds of prophecies like that, in the immediate, but it's not like I'm going to show you that I'm real because I fulfilled all of these prophecies, kind of a thing.
No, he does say that in the Hebrew Bible. He says that all the time.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, it's just okay. So maybe I'm thinking of something that is like not that type of prophecy where he's calling a shot, but something where they are telling stories and narrating things with images of the things before them and echoes of the stories that came before them and blending all of it together. And I see Jesus Christ as a perfect target point for all of those Old Testament stories. Like they line up and they align perfectly towards and they point to Jesus Christ.
I feel like you're not listening to us.
Okay.
So, two things. One is they don't point to Jesus, not a single one of them. There are hundreds of stories in the Hebrew Bible, and you have to like cherry pick a few of them that you think sound vaguely familiar to Jesus. But just like the prophecies, when we drill down into them, I can guarantee they're not anything like Jesus. Like even Isaac being bound and nearly sacrificed, or the Passover festival being the lamb. If you actually drill down into any of these examples, none of them are actually comparable to Christ. They're just vaguely familiar, right? But I don't believe that matters. Like, so for example, if I went into the Hebrew Bible and I found a dozen passages that sound vaguely familiar to me, as long as I get to ignore the context and I get to ignore the actual message of the text, then does that make me the Messiah? Like, for example, famous passage, Hosea 11 says, when Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. This is applied to Jesus in the book of Matthew because Jesus came out of Egypt at some point. But this could certainly be about me. My child is Egyptian. So did I fulfill this prophecy as well?
Yeah, you actually did, but it's not
That's
about.
That's the problem.
Not really. I'm joking with you.
And
it's not
Hosea.
It's not.
Hosea 4 verse 12.
Just, okay, let's mark off prophecies that he's fulfilled. It's like
that's what the New Testament did, my friend. The New Testament went back to the Hebrew Bible, well, actually the Greek Old Testament, and just found anything that sounds vaguely familiar to Jesus and called it a prophecy. I can do that. Hosea 4:12. My people consult a piece of wood, and their divining rod gives them oracles. Fuck! Right here we got Sharon, the rock wood of salvation behind us. Deuteronomy 4:28. There you will serve gods, objects of wood and stone. This is obviously a typological prophecy about my ministry here on AXP and on the internet, right? You see, like if you're just going into the Hebrew Bible and finding any random words that sound vaguely familiar to you, you can do it with anybody. Anybody can be the Messiah now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I completely see what you're saying. I mean, I completely see that. It's if you're just looking at like what Matthew says Jesus fulfilled this Old Testament prophecy and saying, oh, if that is all that you are looking at, then yes, it's like, okay, it's cherry picking, changing where it was in order to, I get that, but it's not just, here are some Old Testament passages that reflect on Jesus Christ, on what he actually did and what he actually fulfilled. It's not just
he didn't
that, it's
fulfill
all of it
anything
together.
No, not one actual prophecy is fulfilled in Jesus.
Justin, if Jesus is the Messiah, if he is the Messiah, right, then
he's not.
He fulfilled Isaiah. If he is the Messiah, and if that means if he's the Messiah, then Isaiah 53 is about him.
No. Okay, so I'm sorry. This is what we've been trying to explain to you. Hold on, Wes. First of all, you're building off of a big if here, right? If he is the Messiah. I mean, that's no way to build a great argument in this particular respect. But also, number two, you're totally just not listening to us when we're telling you that the actual messianic prophecies that are in the Hebrew Bible that are supposed to predict the Messiah, Jesus does not represent a fulfillment of those things. You, like with Isaiah 53, you have to invent prophecies in order to make it fit with the Jesus as portrayed in the Newer Testament. And that's what the Jewish Christians did. They invented new prophecies, and then they crafted a story. They bullshitted you about what prophecies supposedly were fulfilled. And so your task now is to discern between actual fulfillment and just making up bullshit. Can you do that?
Yeah, I don't think that I can defend. If you want me to defend just, what Matthew says in Matthew 1, that prophecy.
No. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, Wes, is that your task right now is to tell us how you know that the Newer Testament Gospels were not crafted around an understanding of a reinterpretation of the Old Testament. So I'm saying that the authors crafted a story to fulfill things that they thought were prophecies but weren't. They had to change and make those things, like Isaiah 53. They had to change the meaning of that in order to understand the Messiah. And then they wrote a story that had Jesus fulfilling that prophecy that they constructed. So how do you know that this figure, Jesus, and I'm coming from a minimal historical position on this, okay? I'm fine Jesus existing. I'm not arguing that point. I'm arguing, what is your method for determining that the gospel authors didn't just make shit up at this point and that Jesus actually did fulfill those things?
I feel like that's two different questions. How do I know that they didn't make stuff up, and how do I know that he didn't fulfill those things?
I feel like it's a dichotomous thing. Either they made this shit up, which is as Justin and I have been telling you, is the more likely conclusion to this, but you seem to think that you can prove that they didn't make shit up and that this Jesus actually fulfilled these things that are actually prophecies, despite the fact that, we just laid out to you the Pesherim tradition that says that they made shit up. You seem to think that this Jesus fulfilled those made up bullshit prophecies. So I'm asking you to determine whether or not he actually did or not.
No, and that's what I'm trying to say is those prophecies in the Old Testament that are pointed out in the New Testament as, you know, Jesus is going to be born of a virgin, which is a whole other can of worms.
Not a prophecy.
Like, exactly. That type of stuff, I'm not going to be able to defend any of that. I don't have any. I completely see the point on those things. And the only reason I think that those are okay, and we are talking about if it's a practice called pesherim or whatever it is, then maybe the people who accepted the pesherim as a valid deal are also the ones that accepted Christ. That doesn't necessarily mean that Christ was not the Christ. It's just that the people who accepted him were not the Pharisees. They were the people that used pesherim. So pesherim ends up in the scriptures. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's not the Messiah. It just means that the people who followed him.
You're not the Messiah until you do what the Messiah is supposed to do. The Old Testament tells you how to know. No, the Messiah is not mentioned in Isaiah 53, ever. Not once.
Israel is
the Messiah.
Suffering. Yes, Israel is completely.
Israel is suffering. You got it. Isaiah 53 is not about the Messiah. It's about Israel.
Right, and I just believe that what happened with Christ is God came down and said, so that Israel is not destroyed. You know, there's messiahs coming in. Here's what I believe happened. There's messiahs coming in right at the point when if Israel had accepted a military messiah, they would have come up against Rome, and Rome would have destroyed Israel.
How?
Wiped them off the
according
map.
to the
I believe that
prophecies, God is granting them victory. If you look at the prophecies, Zechariah chapter 12, Zechariah chapter 14, at that time, God is the one who grants victory to Israel. Zechariah chapter 12, verse 3. On that day, God is speaking, I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the people. All who lift it shall grievously hurt themselves, and all the nations of the earth shall come against it. And on that day, says the Lord, I will strike every horse with panic and its rider with madness, but on the house of Judah I will keep a watchful eye. Victory is in God. Yahweh is the only redeemer of Israel. Yahweh is the only knee to which man will bow. They will not be confessing the name of Jesus in the end. According to the Hebrew Bible, they'll be confessing the name of Yahweh, who is the only redeemer, and the redemption is a true military redemption.
Right. I believe that Yahweh came down to earth as Jesus Christ.
Yahweh did not come down to earth as Jesus Christ.
Okay. So, but here's what I'm saying. I believe
that's logically absurd because Jesus doesn't have all the attributes of Yahweh because he doesn't know neither the day nor the hour of his return, which means he's not omniscient, which means he's not identical to Yahweh.
Right. So Israel was at a point in their history where they were ready to accept a political messiah, a political king, and that political
they needed one
but that political king would have had them have an uprising against Rome. And I believe
that's the goal
to save them.
They don't need to save them by avoiding the conflict. You save by them by warring on their behalf.
Right, but it was
Zechariah 9. It's a war. God fights on their behalf. That's why he's a victorious king. Zechariah 9:9. After he rides the donkey, it says he will cut off the chariot from Ephraim and the war horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off, and he will command peace to the nations. This is a military victory that is awarded by Yahweh. Yahweh doesn't have to avoid war because he's afraid his people are going to die. He doesn't have to do that. He can click his fingers and end all wars in an instant.
Well, that's not how the
Wes.
Is, so I can't. I mean,
Wes, hold on. Let me try to bring up another reference here. Do you know why Gideon was selected by God to be a judge in the Book of Judges?
No.
he was a weak nerd ass bitch. Okay, is essentially like putting it in modern terms. Okay, and the reason why God does, and he does this repeatedly throughout the Old Testament, and I mean maybe Justin can correct me on my understanding here, but he repeatedly does this throughout the Old Testament, and he does this so that he can emphasize his power and influence, because he chooses the weakest amongst his chosen people to enact his will. It emphasizes his power and it emphasizes his influence over the situation. So with your thing here about how, oh, the military Messiah would just get destroyed by Rome, it doesn't make logical sense, because that doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter if Rome was the most powerful nation, like if it was fucking Nazis in 1945, it doesn't matter how powerful they were. God is always going to be more powerful than whatever kind of earthly power. And so God choosing somebody that's more than likely supposed to lose, but come out victorious, emphasizes his power and his influence over the situation. So your argument here, that's why that doesn't make sense.
Okay, so I completely get that. I'm not saying that God could not have come down and beat Rome if he wanted to. What I'm saying is I don't know. There's no way for me to say that I know like why God's plan is laid out like it is, but there is a plan laid out all throughout the Bible, until the end. And part of that plan is to bring in the Gentiles into this Jewish faith as this extra kind of under the umbrella of God as well, so that Gentiles get rid of their other gods.
And to follow the law as well, to follow the Mosaic law.
Yep, that's fine. But it's
does Paul agree with that?
It's according to some type of timing that God has. That Israel, what I'm saying is Israel was about to try to get out ahead of that timing by putting in a false Messiah that would have brought them against Rome. And God stepped in and stopped that from happening, and used at the same time.
God didn't stop anything from happening. Jesus is the false Messiah.
No.
Deuteronomy 13, God says he's going to bring false messiahs to test his people, and that the false messiah are going to teach them different names and to not follow the laws. And that's exactly what we found in the Jesus movement, that there's another name that people are to worship and to bow to, and that they're not going to follow the laws of Moses anymore. But the Hebrew Bible disagrees. The Hebrew Bible says that when the Messiah comes, you're going to follow the laws, even the sacrificial laws. Ezekiel chapter 46 even depicts the Messiah joining in these sacrifices of killing the animals. Jeremiah 33 says that.
I mean,
was Jesus the final sacrifice or not?
Justin. I mean, I believe all of that's coming back as a memorial. I don't believe all of it's coming
back. Was Jesus the final sacrifice or not?
He's the final atoning sacrifice. But there are lots of. They're going to continue sacrifices. Whenever Jesus comes back, they set up the sacrificial system again, but not
Why?
Anything like.
Why would they do that?
The same.
As a memorial, that's preposterous.
No, we do the.
It says there's going to be a king on the throne, and that there's going to be burnt offerings. Jeremiah 33:18. The Levitical priests, these are Levites. The Levitical priests will never lack a man in my presence to bring burnt offerings, to make grain offerings, and to make sacrifices forever.
Exactly.
Why in the world would we believe that Jesus is the final sacrifice when during the reign of the Messiah, the Levitical priests are giving sin offerings?
Because look, I don't think that you can know that Jesus is the Messiah until he comes back and fulfills those prophecies. Completely agree with you.
We agree then.
Right now, like there will be a day when everyone knows that Jesus is the Messiah, but until then, you believe that he will be the Messiah when he comes back. He's anointed first, and he's crowned later. He's not wearing a crown now.
He's not been anointed yet. He was
He's not
never
the Messiah
anointed.
proper.
He was murdered as a criminal. He was killed as a criminal. He was convicted and killed as a criminal. He was never anointed. To be anointed means that you're actually going to be in the official capacity of either a priest or a king, and he was neither.
He
was
anointed
neither.
by the lowest. He was anointed by the lowest.
No, he wasn't. That anointing was for his burial. That anointing was for his burial, he says.
And for
that's an adorable. No, he didn't say that. He didn't say and.
Oh man.
This anointing is in lieu of his. There was certainly not. Neither one of them were for his kinglyship. You don't get anointed by a prostitute and become king.
Exactly. That not the type of king that the world says. That's why
supreme authority is not handed out by watery tarts throwing swords at people. A famous man once said. You don't get to be anointed king because a prostitute put oil on you.
Help! I'm being oppressed.
There it is. We got it.
So, all right. I can't argue with you much about it. I guess I'm just saying I completely see your point, but I just see what is right on the other side of that as well. And it's like, I see the other side of it, and it fits together like a hand in a glove. It just works. And I can't explain
nothing
it.
fits together and nothing works.
Oh man, it absolutely
does.
There's
nothing. There's nothing in the Hebrew Bible whatsoever that would point you towards Jesus. Not one thing.
I was just reading the story of Joseph the other day, and all the echoes and pictures and types all the way through.
Like what? Name one.
He is prophesied or dreams that he's going to rule over his brethren, but he has to go down into a pit and come out first. It's a death, burial, and resurrection. It's a Jonah and the whale and back out again. It's a
so he didn't die?
Back out.
I'm sorry. This is why I told you earlier, these typological prophecies fail too. Joseph didn't die in the pit.
No. Okay, so that's not how.
So in the Joseph narrative as well, his brethren, the supposed precursor of the Israelites, they come to recognize the truth. The Israelites didn't recognize the truth. They went on to murder Jesus. If Joseph was the typological prophecy, then we would find that after he went into the pit, his family still rejected him.
I mean,
this is what I'm talking about. You're doing a sharpshooter fallacy. You're ignoring the details that contradict, and you're just picking the ones that you find that sound familiar.
No.
I can do the same thing. I can do the same thing with me. It's not even hard. I've been dead twice. I've been dead twice. The Joseph is a typological prophecy about me. I was in the pit twice.
Okay. So, like, for example,
I've actually been arrested. So, John, count the parallels. I've been arrested before, and I've been dead twice. That's two parallels with the Joseph story. And as it turns out, I got more brothers and sisters than Jesus. I've got 7 siblings, which gets me way closer to 12 siblings. Obviously, my 7 is a spiritual 12.
I agree with you on all that stuff. I agree that is not the way I'm reading it. I'm reading it as echoes of itself, not as
No, but but okay, Wes, look, we do have one more call to get to, and we've got a lot of super chats to do, so we're going to need to wrap up here in a second. But I want you to recognize that there are verified like messianic prophecies in the Bible where it specifically is talking about the Messiah. Okay, what you are doing, and what hold on. What you are doing, as well as what the early Jews and Jewish Christians were doing, is making shit up to make things make sense. You're making shit up about Jacob. The early Jews and Jewish Christians made shit up about Isaiah 53 and other parts of the Hebrew Bible, well, the Septuagint, as we've been saying, in order to make it make sense. And so you can't just make shit up and then proclaim that you now have some kind of information about what really happened, or that Jesus was truly the Son of God and resurrected from the dead and he fulfilled all these prophecies. You can't just make shit up and then proclaim that to be true. Okay. That's what we're saying here. And Jesus, having not fulfilled any of the actual messianic prophecies of the Old Testament, does not actually fulfill any of these supposed things, even if he was a historical figure. Right. So that's what we're trying to get to across to you. But you seem to be hell bent on just making shit up so that it pleases your religious sensibilities. I don't know. Justin, do you think I'm off on that?
Well, I understand what he's saying, because like if you look at the Old Testament and you're looking for parallels, you're going to fucking find them. But I guarantee you, I will bet you money right now. Take any famous person you can think of. Donald Trump, who cares? And then go into the Old Testament and start looking for parallels of that individual. You'll fucking find hundreds of them, because that's how that works. Like the minute you buy a Honda, you notice every Honda on the road. It's not hard to find parallels between things once you start looking for them. But just finding something that has vague parallels to other things will never be prophecy, and it will never be foreshadowing, and it will never be divine. This is just the human imagination being willing to find connection points where they don't really exist.
I hear that. Can I say one more thing and then I'll let y'all go? Thanks for the time. It's been a really fun conversation.
Yeah.
The parallels I'm thinking of are like when you see Nebuchadnezzar spoken of like a beast, and then you look throughout the rest of the Bible before it, and you see all of the references to the beast before it. They are feeding off of each other and using each other and building off of each other.
Of course they are.
Pointing to a certain figure. And what I'm saying is the scriptures fed off each other and built off each other and pointed to a certain figure. And when I look back through the scriptures, and I know it's confirmation bias, I know all of that stuff, but I look back through the scriptures, and every single page is just Jesus Christ on every single. It's not he was going to be born in Bethlehem.
Can't find it.
That's not that doesn't affect me. I'm talking about how verse after verse just reminds.
You haven't given any. We already did Joseph. Joseph had nothing to do with Jesus.
Oh man.
You want to ignore the details of the Joseph story that don't correlate with Jesus, and then you pick the ones that do correlate, and that's how you get to the same trash interpretation that you have now. Anyone can do it.
It's building.
I can do it. I've got an entire spreadsheet here of prophecies that I fulfilled. Psalm 95:11. In my anger, I swore. I just fulfilled that prophecy. Did I not?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I completely
see how easy it is just to find nonsense connections in the book.
That's not what I mean. I don't see those things. I see the connections like Cain and Abel were connected to the story of Nebuchadnezzar. Not all the detail. It's a completely different story.
Not remotely.
Well,
Cain and Abel is echoing the ancient disputation between shepherds and farmers. There were 7 great disputations in ancient Mesopotamia, and one of the greatest among them was whether or not the shepherd or the farmer was greatest. The shepherding way of life was for nomadic people. The farmer way of life was for the city. It's an epic tale of the city versus the country. Remember when we were like in grade school, we had like the country mouse visits to city mouse, which details the difference between city life and country life. The ancient world was no different. Cain and Abel, that story is just a rehashing of the country versus city argument. That's all. And the take in ancient Israel was that the city was evil, and that the nomadic ways of those like King David was far superior.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm saying that the Nebuchadnezzar story builds on centuries.
Oh my God! So Wes.
Naval story.
Okay, Wes. Here's what I take away from this is that you are hard pressed to continue in your ignorance of what we've been talking about this entire time. You're hard pressed to stick to your biases for your religion. And I mean, I guess that's okay if you want to go through life like that. I wouldn't suggest it. But when you encounter new information like we presented with you here, the best way to resolve that cognitive dissonance that you're feeling right now is to incorporate that new information into your worldview. And instead of just rejecting it outright, even though you know that you shouldn't reject it outright, and sticking with your preconceived intuitions about, this story or whatever. Like, I feel like you need to really think about this and try to resolve it internally so that you're not just going with your cognitive biases just out of habit, because that's what it seems like to me. It's just out of habit. You're going to continue to believe in it. You're going to continue to fight hard to believe that Jesus fulfilled these prophecies and that all these things were connected, instead of them just being made up like it seems to have been.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can appreciate that. Is like, it seems like that's where I'm at. Where I actually am is I was a believer for many, many years and completely lost my faith for many, many years, and have just not been able to completely shake it. And every time I read the Bible, every time I read it, I see like Jesus Christ as the perfect fulfillment of this. So, and I have all of the things that y'all told me, all of the things that caused me to originally deconstruct, and which I did over years, just with all of that. And Apologia, I've listened to a lot. His stuff really made me throw out the resurrection completely. All of that. I just have gotten to that point when we started this call. Justin said, I think people are like, freshmen in college, and they get some information, they think they know everything, and then they find out they don't know anything. I think I've gone through that both with Christianity and now with atheism, until I'm like, it just seems, that's why I say it just still seems to click for me. So if I have to, you can call me an agnostic theist instead of it or whatever, but I completely see that side of it. But man, that Jesus Christ just rings and resonates true to me in spite of all that.
In spite of all the evidence against it. Cool. All right. Well, listen, Wes, thanks for coming in and chatting with us and having a calm, collected conversation. I think you tolerated the two of us kind of harping on you pretty well, so you get some kudos for that. But think about some of the things we talked about and come back and talk to us again.
Really appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
That's some tough cognitive dissonance. It's like, I don't care what the evidence is. I'm going to read my special thing into the Bible every time I read it.
Yeah, it's what it seems like. I mean, he's still stuck on believing in that, because I don't know if he just doesn't want to let it go or what, but it seems like, yes, all of these good reasons I shouldn't believe it. I'm still believing it though, even for bad reasons, and I'm reserved to that. That just seems crazy to me.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do this. We're going to take one question from Saul and then read through our super chats before we run out of time. Saul, we apologize. We went long with the previous caller, so we're not going to have a ton of time on this. So we may or may not give you all the information that you're looking for. But Saul, welcome on to AXP with Godless Engineer and Justin. What questions did you have about dispensationalism?
Okay, before my question, I just like to point out one thing. In Ezekiel 46, verse 16, it says that the Messiah, the Prince, will have children of his own. So Jesus in his earthly ministry, even in the book of Revelation, doesn't have any children. So that's something else you could have added, I guess. But regarding dispensationalism, I came out of dispensationalism a while back. I had spoken to John a long time ago in another channel.
What's the question?
Regarding dispensationalism, do you think that dispensationalism will it can be used like by Christians these days to take care of the errors that find like contradictions? You can like harmonize it, something like that. For example, in Ezekiel 14:14, it says that Old Testament prophets, they gained their own righteousness, not through some atonement or blood atonement. So they say that dispensationalism, that in Old Testament there is a different type of thing, in New Testament there is a different type of salvation, something like that. That's it.
How many steps of dispensationalism are you aware of?
To be honest, I think there might be 7 or more than that. I'm not sure, but I do know that there are 7 at least.
Okay,
Yeah.
So here's what we'll need you to do. We'll be live again after the new year. The standard model of dispensationalism is either 3 or 7. There's as many as 4 and 8 in some different models. Read up on the 7 model and the 3 model. Those are probably the most popular. And then come back with a very specific question if you want answers, because it sounds like you just want me to explain dispensationalism. And as much as I'd love to, we're kind of out of time. We've got like 5 minutes left in the show, and we're not going to be able to get through the rest of the show if we do that. But we would love to, if you have a specific question, we'd love to answer that specific question. I'm just not really sure that you have one right now.
I know, I'm too nervous. I waited an hour for this call and now I'm like blanking out. Sorry.
It's okay. Write it down. Write down your questions, and then come back next time we're live, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions for you. Okay.
I wish we could have spoken for longer, because I had one doubt in John chapter 13 about Jesus washing his disciples' feet. That time Jesus actually takes off all of his garments.
Yep.
Then after that, like...
Oops. All right. Apologize, my fingers slipped. Let's read some super chats before we run out of time. First one from Zenerthran. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Says, at Godless Engineer, how close to reality... Oh, shoot, we read that one already. I apologize. Yeah. Let's start on the next one. At Space Barbarian, $5, says, I am so smart, SMRT. Remember that song from Homer Simpson on the... That's a good one.
Then we got the Zenatharthran. Fuck me. $4.99 that says, where the hell is this historicity of George Washington talking point coming from? I guess his dentures are the Shroud of Turin.
Basically, that is the case. Good question. Great to see you today. Thank you for the 666. Hail Nero says, theists lack new arguments because progressive revelation has run its course. Creative heretics like Craig, Turek, etc. unrighteously add to the book. I think so. And to be fair, some of the more early apologists were quite verbose. They already covered a lot of ground, and it's hard to do something new when the early apologists wrote so damn much.
Yeah. Next is Cardiac Kid, who says, I think the virgin birth narrative would be worse if it were true. Mary clearly had no choice in the narrative. I completely agree, but you'll get Christians that will try to fight you on this.
I totally agree, actually. I mean, the power dynamic is unreal. Even if you think she had the ability to say no, the pressure and the coercion of a God telling you something means that you wouldn't have said no. It's preposterous. Mm-hmm. Narcissa, good to see you, my friend. Thank you for the super chat. Says, I have no respect for people who fall for this cruel garbage. Maybe you're referring to the Christians, and I get it. I understand how when you find people who fall for this kind of nonsense, it would be difficult to have some sympathy for them. But to be fair, we've all found ourselves believing crazy things from time to time. So I try to not judge them, because I was once them, to be honest.
Oh, sorry. Narcissa, again, that says, please don't let this guy get away with his passive aggressive hate.
Yeah, sometimes we do get some of that. I think the last guest we talked to was at least nice. I think he might have been genuine. He's stuck in it, right? He hasn't learned how to use his brain properly, like to really use logic. He might be in a career where logic isn't that important for your job. Kelly, thank you for the super chat. Says, appreciate Godless, Doug, Kitty, crew. What you do is so important. And thank you. Really appreciate that.
Next is Narcissa. It says, please ask Wes why he uses a book to hate people. I don't know Wes, so I don't know if he does do that. He might.
I wonder if Narcissa has seen Wes before. I didn't ask what his views on like homosexuality or anything else is. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that he's not like a homophobic, xenophobic, right-wing bigot. Mr. Stupa, thank you for the 666, says, do you think Jesus is still looking for a good top, and that's why we haven't had his second coming? I got a lot of questions about that. I don't know what he's waiting for to come. All I know is that we've all gotten bored waiting for it.
Yeah, the edging game is not fun. And then finally, we've got Narcissa again that says, no need to read my super chats, which is quite meta.
Sorry about that, Narcissa. Love you. Oh man, well,
all
I
right.
think that is the show. We got out with half a minute to spare. You believe that?
Man, I can't. Yeah, we had so many super chats. I was wondering if we were ever gonna be able to do it.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining me. I had a blast. I think we always have fun. And host Drew, thank you so much for having us. Let's hear from our backup host before we move out. Flabbergasted is with us tonight. We actually had quite a bit of material. What were your thoughts? Did you have any arguments that, I mean, are you a Christian now? Did you get persuaded? What happened?
Not even close. Those were the best, worst arguments I've heard in a while. Wes was driving me insane though, because like his whole, like the first half of the conversation was all, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. If this, but that, no substance. If we interpret it this way, if we accept this, if we assume that, then everything I believe makes perfect sense. Sure, if we're going to believe whatever you want to think about. And then the second half was just like him just kind of changing like what he's bringing to the table for every argument. It was like, I think I sent a message in our group chat. Basically, it's like we're playing checkers with him. And every time we look away from the board, he's pulling out a chess piece and putting it somewhere on the board. It's like, we're not playing the same game because we're not playing by the same rules. And the rules we're playing by is, okay, but can you show us that? Can you demonstrate? Oh, but if I think about it in this way, and if I interpret it this particular way, then I'm justified in my beliefs. And it's exhausting. I was exhausted for the first half, and I think, losing my mind for the second half because I was laughing through the whole thing. So that was fun.
It can be painful as a viewer to watch somebody who seems to be openly admitting that they believe a thing, having no good reason to believe it. And I understand he's like, well, when I read the Hebrew Bible, I see all these parallels, but like literally anything. In fact, if you want to make your cat the Messiah, I guarantee you can go into the Old Testament and find enough parallels to make your cat the Messiah. The reality is, like, finding glancing parallels is a meaningless way to figure out who the Messiah is.
True. And I do think cats are less sadistic than God. So that could work out very well for us.
Yeah.
They might, a lot more things might be falling off tables though. Just saying.
Everything just off. I have to clear like my tables and desks at home of any objects for the cat to throw down, or else they're gonna get thrown down.
Yeah. I mean, at least then we'd have a good excuse for the problem of evil, right? Why is there evil in the universe? Because cats. That's why.
God's got like a really big pet cat, and it's just up there fucking everything up, having a great time.
Right. But instead, we have Jesus, who was raped into existence, as GE pointed out.
Yeah, exactly. And no, the cat thing actually makes a lot of sense, because if you think about it, in the Bible, God says that he has storehouses full of precipitation, right? Stored in like jars or whatnot. So the cat gets up there into the warehouse, is like, fuck this shit, and knocks over like snow. You know, I mean, like, I totally see that. That's totally, yeah.
And if we go with Wes's methodology, with the fact we can imagine these things, we can interpret it that way, justifies our belief that God's jars of condensation is how we get weather.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, indeed. Yeah. Well, friends, you heard it here. God's a cat. Flabbergasted, thank you so much for for backing us up today. And thank
Happy
you
to
so
be
much, everyone who's been here watching the show. Please remember to like and subscribe and share. Remember, we've got other shows throughout the week as well. So we'll see you again a week from now, 4:30 Central Standard Time, 5:30 Eastern Standard. Oh, not next week. We got a 2-week break. Thank you, John. We've got it. We're off for the rest of the Yuletide pagan holiday season, and we'll be starting back up again in January. Is it the second week in January?
I'm not sure. Maybe.
We'll let you know, friends. We'll let you know. Hey, thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Merry rape baby season.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.